At 9 o'clock, so we'll call this workshop meeting to order. So tonight, first we'll have changes to the agenda and approval of the agenda. And we do have deleted item 3.1, proclamation to recognize the month as September Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And consent agenda added item 7.5, appropriation of School District 2 board member capital outlay funds to Elliott Point Elementary for clear touch panels in the amount of $23,276, presented by Ms. Gardner. That brings us to Section 3, recognitions. As we said, we deleted the proclamation for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. And 3.2, recognition of the 2022-2023 Okaloosa County School District Outstanding School Volunteers, presented by Mr. Chambers. Section 4, administrative personnel appointments. Tonight we have none. Section 5, public comment agenda items only, blue card version. And so today we have a request from Ms. Jansen. Would you like to come forward and discuss your item? And Mr.
Thank you
Attorney?
so much, Ms. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am. He has some rules.
You will have 3 minutes to make your presentation.
Understood. Thank you. Good morning. My name is Kelly Jason. Very proud to be the president and CEO of United Way Emerald Coast. I am here today to speak briefly regarding consent agenda item 7.25, the annual MOU agreement between the school board, school district, and United Way Emerald Coast for our Reading Pals program. This will be the third year that we would be implementing Reading Pals in partnership with the school district, although we've had it for a few additional years in partnership with some of our nonprofit partners like Boys and Girls Clubs and the Early Learning Coalitions of the Emerald Coast. Reading Pals is a program that pairs adult reading mentors, or the PALs, with pre-K and kindergarten students. They work with schools that are willing participants and have possibly a pool of volunteers close by. This past year, we were stationed at Southside Primary as well as Edwins Elementary, and we impacted about 100 students from the school district. Although that might be a small number, I'm sure you would agree that sometimes we impact children one child at a time. This is a research-based curriculum that is used across the state of Florida, and we are really proud to say that this past year, 100% of the volunteers who were surveyed stated that their children improved or maintained early literacy skills. So these reading mentors meet with the children, the same children, throughout the school year for at least 28 weeks for 30 minutes. They pull them from the classroom or have a quieter space in the classroom. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, 1 adult to 2 children for 30 minutes, using this approved curriculum, some manipulatives to engage the children in conversations and early literacy skills. So we really hope that tonight you will approve that MOU and be able to continue this partnership impacting the children who need us most across Okaloosa County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Appreciate
Jensen.
you coming.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I think we know with United Way, not only are they a partner with this program, which we appreciate, but they partner with us in so many other ways to support our students. So I just want to thank you for all that you do.
Absolutely. So that brings us to Section 6, 6.1, in-county travel paid for July 2023, and 6.2, out-of-county travel paid for July 2023. Section 7 is our consent agenda. 7.1, as we said tonight, would be approval of the entire consent agenda. 7.2, approval of the minutes of the workshop meeting of August 14th, 2023, minutes of the regular meeting of August 14th, 2023. 7.3, appropriation of District 1 school board member capital outlay funds to Wright Elementary School for classroom flooring in the amount of $28,463.45, presented by Dr. White. 7.4, appropriation of District 3 school board member capital outlay funds to Baker School for a golf cart in the amount of $16,700, presented by Ms. Ivanchik. 7.5, appropriation of District 2 school board member capital outlay funds to Elliott Point Elementary School for clear touch panels in the amount of $23,276, presented by Ms. Gardner. 7.6, request to advertise a public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 04-28, Emergency Operations, School Safety and Security, presented by Danny Dean. 7.7, request to advertise a public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 06-39, employees' use of social media, presented by Eric Mitchell.
I'm sorry. I went by too fast on 7.6, Mr. Dean. And I was going to have him come up for a moment. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Morning, Mr. Dean.
Good morning.
And I know I've spoken with you. First of all, I appreciate that little change between the lockdown, the lockout, because I remember that when I was in the, like, what was that and which one is it? And so that's great. I like that, changing that to secure. My question for you this morning, sir, is something that I get asked a lot, and especially this is always an issue, Mr. Superintendent, cell phones. And I read in there that, of course, what we would prefer a student with a cell phone to do in an emergency situation is to go with texting over trying to make a verbal call out. However, there has been some discussion statewide of where we are on actual cell phone use in the schools. So can you clarify on the safety piece where you see it?
On the safety piece, yes, ma'am, we have in our policy and have had in our policy that students are permitted to use their cell phones in an emergency. We prefer and ask that teachers instruct their students in those situations to utilize text messaging as opposed to voice calls. The text messaging doesn't utilize as much bandwidth as voice calls, and sometimes in certain instances the inundation of calls can create some mobile networks to bog down, so the text messaging allows that information to go out. It also gives the students the ability to silence their phones and still be able to notify their parents that they're okay, as well as the Okaloosa County Public Safety Answering Point, the 911 Center, has next generation 911 capabilities, so students or anybody in the community for that matter can actually text to 911 and make that same 911 call that they would have made by voice through their text messaging.
I just learned that reading that. I didn't know that you could text. I'm out of it. But also, certainly in a situation, we don't want students in conversations in that. I mean, it's confusing and it can actually maybe help out the bad guy, so to speak. So there's part of that. But Mr. Superintendent, would you speak on as far as where the district is, because you know this has come up?
No, absolutely. I think we are definitely in support of the new law in terms of we want students to not be on their phones during classroom instruction. Teachers do have the ability right now within that new law to have students put up the phones, and schools are adhering to that. But I do believe that it is vital that students do have access to their phone in the event that there was an emergency. One of the things that I was going to talk about during my portion, but I think it's appropriate right now to say, is we are sending home a safety letter to our families next week, let them know exactly where we are as it pertains to whether it be a intruder, whether it's weather, or any other type of an event. We want families to know that if there was a lockdown or a secure, that this can impact students. As we know, some students get nervous, so we're giving them also some information on conversations that they can have with their students. So we're trying to be very proactive on safety and making sure that we have good communication not only with our employees but also with students and families. So I think it's an excellent question that you're posing. I will say the new law, where you have the ability to make sure that the phone is put up, it does add a layer, right? Because if the student doesn't necessarily have their phone on them, so it does add a layer. But I think our schools are handling this the right way. And again, just want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can for safety. On a separate note, but still safety oriented, I think we're blessed that we do have a safety office here in our school district, and through your leadership, we've added to that office. Mr. Dean is someone who's recognized across the state of Florida as a leading safety expert, even to the extent he's now he's actually the chairman of a board that will also deal with potential legislative changes. And just give a 30-second just understanding of what that new board is and what that new position is going to be.
Certainly. So under the Florida Association of District School Superintendents, they've established a new organization for Florida Safe School Specialists. It's commonly referred to as FS3. It's the Florida Association of School Safety Specialists. It's comprised of all the 67 school safety specialists as well as some additional members, be it on the mental health side or from the educational side with the Florida Association of District Superintendents. With that, the key components and responsibilities of that organization is going to be the training of our safe school specialists throughout the district to make sure that or throughout the state to make sure that they're receiving the most robust training available and certifications that are out there in the safety field, as well as the committee that I am chairing will be responsible for developing legislative proposals regarding safety in schools, K through 12 schools.
And if I might just
Yeah.
follow up very quickly, Mr. McInnes, I know that you're involved in the drafting and review of school board policy, and when the public sees this item, and of course they know about the law about cell phones, and then we turn around and talk about how they can even use them. I know that you've had the opportunity as our attorney to look at this policy, and you're assured that we're not in any kind of legal conflict here between these two different items.
Yes, sir. I think that they're two entirely different scenarios. One is the emergency crisis situation. The other is dealing with the classroom time and classroom instructional time.
Right. Okay. And so for me, that's what I want to know. I want to make sure the lawyer says it's okay.
Exactly. That's why I want to make sure we're all on the same thing with this, because this is an item that gets people emotional, and like you said, so we want to make sure that we understand that we're all. So I'm glad that you're on that committee. That's wonderful,
Thank you.
sharing that.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Thank you so much.
All right. I believe we covered 7.7, so that brings us to 7.8. Request to advertise a public hearing for revision of School Board Policy 08-07, requirements for instructional personnel, presented by Dr. Hale. 7.9. Request to advertise a public hearing for revision of School Board Policies Chapter 12, School District Transportation, presented by Jay McGinnis.
And Madam Chair, this is one of our annual
Reviews.
reviews of an entire chapter, and you'll be seeing some of those at the next meeting that we'll be completing before the end of the year.
Thank you. 7.10, request to advertise a public hearing for adoption of a revised job description for Human Resource Analyst, presented by Dr. Hale. 7.11, invoices to be approved for payment, presented by Julie Perry. 7.12, school donations, presented by Julie Perry. Excuse me, Ms. Gardner, you started something. 7.13, payroll warrant register and accounts payable warrant register totaling $19,548,255.32, and self-help insurance claims and fees totaling $2,102,807.96, and bank transfers totaling 0 for July 2023, presented by Julie Perry. 7.14, RFQ 24-28, Florida Transformative Education, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.15, RFQ 24-29, IXL, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.16, renewal of ITB 20-01, epoxy flooring-DW, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.17, renewal of ITB 23-01, UVC, virus kill systems, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.18, tag-on bid purchase over $50,000, Maxim Healthcare Services Incorporated, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.19, Tag on bid purchase over $50,000, train, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.20, service agreement number 24-45, the DBQ project, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.21, service agreement number 24-46, S3 Strategies, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.22, service agreement number 24-71, Allied Instructional Services, LLC, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.23, annual agreement for charter bus services between the School Board of Okaloosa County and Charter Up, LLC, presented by Vince Wyndham. 7.24, Cassie Task Order Number 2-207 for conduit installation for data drop installation of Okaloosa County School District vape detectors, presented by Dustin Keith. 7.25, Reading Paths Memorandum of Understanding between the United Way Emerald Coast and the School Board of Okaloosa County, presented by Steve Horton. 7.26, Biggs Inspiring Scholastic Success Grant Interagency Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Big Brothers Big Sisters of Northwest Florida, presented by Steve Horton. 7.27, School Improvement Plans for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Sheila Lightbourne. 7.28, Underground Distribution Facilities Installation Agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida and Florida Power and Light Company at Niceville High School, presented by Bill Smith. 7.29, Addition of Ally Health Employee Benefits Program, presented by Russ Frakes. And I believe we have Dr. Hale and Mr. Caraway here to speak just a second about that. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, Madam Chair, Board, Superintendent. I'm going to let Mr. Caraway do the heavy lifting with this very, very quick presentation. But I wanted to let you know that the Benefits Oversight Group continues to seek ways to improve the benefit package for our employees, and this is an example of that. I'm very excited about this. We collectively had identified a gap in our employee assistance program that we would provide employees, and we were concerned that there was a mental health component that needed to be addressed. And so Mr. Caraway and his group took that to task, and they went out and found a very, very good solution, I believe, to address things like mental health, but it also has some other components that are very, very exciting. Everything from free telemedicine for every employee, regardless of whether or not they're eligible for benefits and their dependents within their household, to health coaching, which can help with the work-life balance. But what I'm especially proud of is the new mental health components that you can see right there in your item. Specifically, the virtual mental health, which is 10 sessions for a family, as opposed to what we currently had, which was 4. And then beyond 10, even with a reduced copay, so to speak. Really excited about helping with that, but also the 24/7 access to the Integrated Employee Assistance Program, which is there for everything from mental health issues to financial issues to legal assistance to just needing to talk to somebody. And it is virtually unlimited. It's not technically unlimited. It's available 3 issues per person per year, but an issue can be everything from assistance with weight loss all the way to I need help balancing my checking account and things like that. So there's just an unlimited amount of resources that are associated with this. And keep in mind also that as we move into a self-funded environment, anything that we can do in a program like this reduces the claims against our self-funded insurance, which is also a benefit. But I'm going to step away and like I said, let Mr. Caraway do the heavy lifting. But just know that the BOG and I especially are very, very excited about this program.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Hill.
And before
Good
Mr.
morning.
Caraway starts, I do want to say, this board has asked many times, what can we do for our employees in terms of mental wellness? And as you know, we've done a lot on the student side. And I'm very thankful that Dr. Hale, the BOG, has done a great job of finding this program. So I think what's going to be described is something that you're going to be proud of, but more importantly, it's going to be a great service for our employees. So again, just very much appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all again. Dr. Hill hit really a lot of the highlights on what we're going to be offering. What I want to touch on, the intangibles and some of the tangibles that are going to be associated with this platform in how the employees will access this care. Currently, we have a telemedicine program available through United Healthcare's platform, right? We all understand that we're self-funded. When folks access that care, and we want them to, those expenses or claim expense to that service is going against our claim bucket, if you will, our claim fund. So that's going to remain in place, but we're offering this Ally Health, and we're going to fold that in with the 4 tiles that Dr. Hill touched on: mental health, EAP, wellness and coaching, and then the telemedicine program. The telemedicine program that's going to be available to them allows people to have access via the phone or video, right? They don't have to go to the doctor's office. They're not going to urgent care. They're not going to the emergency room. And and it's a zero cost, by the way, to the member and their dependents, whether they're covered under our medical plan or not. And I think one of the things that we're going to be working on, not to get too much of the weeds, is we don't have a lot of our dependents covered due to cost. So maybe they're covered elsewhere. Or so what this is going to do is it's going to give them access points to receive care for all their family members. That's all bundled into this pricing. It's going to redirect claim cost off of our self-funded plan. So we're going to monitor this on a quarterly basis, on an annual basis, make sure that the investment that we're making on the front end has an ROI, which we know will be over time significant to the plan. The mental health, and we're going to be using MD Live for that. The mental health benefit, as Dr. Hill mentioned, zero copay. You know, the biggest deterrent that folks have right now with mental health is access, getting in a timely manner, and then also affordability, cost. Because typically, if it's a psychologist, you're looking at somewhere between $150 and $200, and a psychiatrist is going to be $250. This is zero cost for 10 visits. This is not hitting our claims, our self-funded plan. That's a big, big deal on top of the access to care. Beyond that, they'll be able to access those via video, via phone calls at a discounted rate of $90 for continued services. They don't have to change providers. That's also, I think, a big, big piece of what we're talking about here. The other thing that I wanted to mention to you is that by using or having access to these 2 platforms with zero cost, that's not going to hit their HRA bucket as well, their HRA funds that they have access to. So they'll be able to use those dollars for other expenses that they may incur throughout the year. But then beyond that 10 visits, if they max it out, then they would have their HRA funds to be able to support that cost if they needed to. So with that, I know I'm on a tight timeline here. Any questions I can answer for you?
Well, Madam Chair, I have just one, and it pertains to the second point on the agenda item, and it references what you've spoken about, telemedicine. And so I'm wondering if you might clear up for me and maybe employees that might be listening, what kind of ailments might a person contact telemedicine for? I know this references mental health, but might they contact them because they have a sore throat, et cetera, et cetera?
No, that's a great question, and it is limited to what they will treat you for, but typically it's sinus infections, common cold, spider bites, rashes, things of that nature.
Very good. So a lot of the kind of things that they might attend their regular physician for, or maybe immediate care or emergency care, they can now do this via telemedicine.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, Dr. Hale, will this, how will an employee access this new endeavor?
Well, that's a great question too. Another one of the added benefits to this program is an app on the phone that kind of encapsulates all of it at one time. So everybody's got a smartphone these days, and so if you can add this particular app to your phone, you'll have access to all this with just a touch of a finger.
And so maybe on the health and risk management portion of our district website, we'll have some way for them to
100%, and also monthly reminders on Catch the Wave.
And the other thing we're going to do, because we feel how important this is to the school district, their team members, their dependents. Russ's team, myself, we're going to be going out through certain schools throughout the county and doing a road show, for the lack of a better word, to communicate this platform and the access that folks will have to this. Absolutely.
Yeah, that roadshow will also include the Surgery Plus that you guys have recently approved as well. With Surgery Plus and Ally Health, we think that we have made significant steps forward into on-time care for our employees, which is what we want, because we know that healthy employees are working employees, and we want them to be working, so.
Well, and I've seen the telehealth, and I'm so excited to see the mental health piece of it, because, Dr. White, I've seen where teachers during a break time had a scheduled appointment.
Yeah.
They were able to go in, and of course, when strep throat's going away, they had their appointment. They were able to see the telehealth doctor. The doctor called in the prescription. So by the end of the day, the employee was just able to run by their pharmacy and pick up the prescription. And we know how hard it is to get into doctor's office, especially individuals that are working. But really excited to see the mental health part of it, because so
Yeah,
often
too.
people are the stigma, the trying to get off or whatever, that they can sit there in their privacy of their home or wherever and participate in the mental health portion of it.
Couldn't
So
agree more,
it's
yeah.
the way Mr. Russ was talking about eventually, that dental, I don't know how that's gonna work, and vision. It's probably gonna go telehealth, but that will be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to try
Dental
that
does.
one yet.
I want to see that dental.
The dental part.
People were lucky when telemedicine came out, and it's really mainstream now.
It
with-
really
I'll sign up for
has,
that.
to be able, you're able to get appointments quicker.
Sure.
That's what I'm finding out,
Yeah,
and especially
absolutely.
helping our employees that.
Well,
are at
and,
work.
and Ms. Gardner, I've never done telemedicine where it was free. There's always been a charge. that
Yeah,
I
you
had
gotta
to pay.
run that card first, then they'll come on, yeah.
So the fact that they can access this at no cost.
And I think adding to that, Dr. White, so unless something has changed, so the telemedicine, you have the 10 visits on the mental wellness side, and then my understanding is also there's 3 visits per issue that an employee might have that you might expound on as well.
Right, and so and Mike, if I say anything wrong, just push me aside
I
and
got
take
you.
But this is not necessarily a scheduled visit. The 10 mental health visits are scheduled sessions online with a licensed counselor there's a variety. There's hundreds to choose from in the particular area of expertise. One of the beautiful things is within those 10 is if you don't necessarily match up with someone that you jive with, you can select a different one. And that's the 10 sessions. The 3 calls per issue per person per year has to do with the on-time 24/7 kind of acute counseling that you can get without scheduling it. It's all the time. It's for anything that you need in an on-time way, whether it be 12 midnight, 6 in the morning, or right after that 7th period class, right? So you can call them and get the on-time assistance that you need 3 times per issue per person. And when I say per person, that's everybody in your family. Okay? And like I said earlier, per issue, you might have anxiety, and you may have some type of stress situation that may not necessarily be the same issue. So it's virtually unlimited in terms of that. So the on-time piece of that is really the key, and that is aside from your 10 visits. That's in addition to, and again, at 0 cost.
Okay, so I have a question on, in our regular insurance, how there's, I think, 3 or 4 visits that you can do, and we had a plan and a designated provider. Okay, does that still exist, or will this supplant this program? What's gonna happen with
Yeah,
that?
so that will be a conversation that we might have with you when that contract expires, but we're still under contract with that
Right.
organization, and so those 4 free visits in a face-to-face environment still do they're still in play. You
Okay,
can still do
all
that.
right.
And one of the other questions that you might have, which was raised while we were evaluating all these different plans, was, so what if we're not really attuned to the online counseling environment? Well, you can still utilize our UHC to access your health care at whatever the rates are that they're already doing that. The current EAP that we have with the 4 counseling sessions, if someone were to go beyond that, 3, 4, and go to the 5th, 6th, and beyond, that would have been, it's exactly the same thing. So,
Okay.
but yes, we are still under contract with that organization, and when it comes time to renewal, that'll be a conversation that we'll have with you guys if we think we still need that.
Well, another thing about this too is, I think we all are witnessing that, I don't know if the word's shortage, but we don't have a plethora of people out there in this area to service. We have a lot of employees, not to say everybody needs that, but, it's hard to find somebody that you can get in, or sure, you can have an appointment in December, and certainly in mental health, we need, like you said, on time, or, pretty close. You need it like at least this week or something. And so this is a great thing. But I just want to say that since I've come on this board, we've made a lot of strides in a lot of things, but this particular thing has moved so much forward in the last few years that it's incredible. I just think it's such a wonderful thing for our employees and everything. And Mike, you've been a great asset to our team here in getting it. We appreciate you and your expertise.
Thank you.
I think that's been vital in moving that along with the BOG, and of course Dr. Hale and his group. But it just makes me really proud that we're offering these items to our employees. And again, our district is only as strong as our employees. I mean, that's it. I mean, we got to have them. We have to have them working, and everything. So we're basically helping ourselves as a board, as a district, when we help those employees. So I was very glad to see this. Thank you.
Thanks.
So I have a quick question, Dr. Kelly, to Dr. Hale. So you mentioned something about the road show. So the road show is, I love to hear this, because I think, there's employees out there who don't necessarily, look at every email they get or look at every catch the wave. And I think in person is always the best way of communicating. Is it going to be limited to just what we're talking about here today, or is it going to be expanded to all benefits that employees receive?
So the current plan right now is for Russ and Krista to communicate with each principal as to whatever available time in a faculty/staff meeting that they can get to. Our initial plan is to limit it to the Surgery Plus and Ally Health, because it's the ones that are not necessarily going to be tied to open enrollment. It's going to be available soon. And so they want to get that there, plus we know how protective principals are of their faculty meeting time. So we're going to start with that. Obviously, we'll open up to any questions, and any other time that we have, I'm going to try to tag along with them. Any other time that we have, we'll fill some of those gaps as well. But the initial plan is to discuss primarily Ally Health and Surgery Plus.
Great.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
All right, that brings us to 7.30, revised memorandum of agreement between the Sheriff of Okaloosa County, Florida, and the School Board of Okaloosa County to establish the terms and conditions under which the Sheriff's Office can access live feed security video as part of the district's overall safety and security plan, presented by Danny Dean. 7.31, Bureau of Federal Educational Programs, Title III, Immigrant Children and Youth Project Application for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Anita Choice. 7.32, School to Work contract between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and School to Work provider to provide career experience opportunities to eligible students at Richburg School, presented by Amy Bowles.
Dr. Kelly, can I comment on this
Sure.
item? I would just like to thank the city of Crestview. I know about a year and a half ago they approached me personally about trying to figure out how they can work with Richburg School, and I brought that to Mr. Chambers' attention and Dr. Chapman's attention at Richburg, and I'm glad to see it's coming through. and that we're going to have our students working with the city on certain projects out there. So thank you to you and your staff for making that happen. Ms. Bowles isn't in here. I would thank her personally, but thank you for that.
And I appreciate you saying that. I think it's another example. So Richburg, Silver Sands, who has those opportunities as well. The Hilton Garden Inn, as you know. So trying to provide our students with as many opportunities, because they'll graduate from local schools one day, and they'll have marketable skills to be able to be a servicing citizen in this county.
And that real-world experience.
Absolutely.
Good stuff.
7.33, Unified School Improvement Grant, UNICIG, application for 2023-2024, presented by Amy Dale. 7.34, agreement between the School Board of Okaloosa County, Florida, and PT Solutions Holdings to provide athletic trainer services at middle school football games, presented by Ryan Gore.
And Madam Chair, and this is for the board as well. So we've had a great relationship with the Andrews Institute, and they do a great job of servicing our athletic programs. This year, they have come into staffing shortages. So normally they will service all of our middle school football games as well. And they let us know this summer that they were not able to service our middle schools. We had several conversations with them, myself included. Now they might come back next year if the staffing they will come back next year if the staffing shortages take care of themselves. However, we know with talking specifically football right now, it's a game where obviously you can have injuries. With the heat right now, we know that we needed to make sure that we have coverage. So what you have before you, Mr. Gore did a great job getting out to the community and saying who might be able to cover these football games. And Mr. Gore, as I'm talking, if you'd come forward for a second, and who might be able to cover these football games. So we reached out to a number of different entities who also had staffing shortages. But we were able to get with PT Solutions, but then we went beyond that, and we also reached out to our EMS services. So where PT Solutions will handle certain games, the ones that's not handled, we made sure that we contracted with EMS services so that they were there on site. As you can imagine, the first football games this past week, we did have some injuries. That's going to happen in football, but we had people on site. There were some comments, not negative comments, but there were some comments whether or not we as a school district, whether we made a cut in our ability to service middle school, it was a funding issue. So we cut that, shared with the families. We actually have a letter that's going to go to our families of athletes. So it's definitely not a cut of the school board or the superintendent. This is just merely a staffing shortage by a partner of ours, the Andrews Institute, who's done a great job with us. However, we were proactive in making sure that we still had coverage for our games. And my question to you, Mr. Gore, in the past, the Andrews Institute covered football, but it was limited on the other sports that they covered.
Yeah, that's correct. The other sports, they would try to cover the playoff games, for example, soccer, baseball, basketball, but they were not at every single regular season game.
And I bring that up because some might say, well, what about the other sports? So the way that it's been done historically is the Andrews Institute would cover football and then the others, as Mr. Gore said. But knowing right now, especially the heat, we can go back to July, so we knew that this was here, but we wanted to be certain that we had coverage for our student athletes.
So I have a question, maybe for Ms. Marie. Is there any legal situation that we have to have a certain amount of coverage as a board for sports?
We have provided these as a best practice.
Okay.
In the, many years ago, there were not full-time athletic trainers with the
Trainers, yeah.
teams. The EMS would be there. We had local physicians who would oftentimes cover a football game. But for a matter of consistency with service is why we went to these agreements to get the trainers across the middle and high schools.
So essentially, if there may not be someone to every single game, middle school game. But of course, you've got EMS on standby, and you have trainers even for middle school teams that are there, right? Not
It-
maybe these PT solutions, but other trainers that they have, right? And we have within different schools,
Are you referencing football? Or
Uh,
just sports in general?
sports in general.
So sports in general, we will not have PT solutions in place. This contract is just for football.
Okay.
Obviously, the higher chance of injury.
Right.
And even with the staffing shortages Mr. Chambers spoke about, even they could not cover all the games.
Mhm.
And so that's when we came in and met with EMS to provide that dedicated coverage, just to have some type of coverage at all the middle school football games. Now, obviously, as the season progresses, we can have conversations with PT Solutions about could they provide additional. Obviously, you're looking at a cost of that, but that is certainly something we could discuss if that's the direction we want to go.
Well, and Mr. Gore, that's something that I'd like to just point out, and particularly regarding some of the comments the superintendent made that may be circulating in the community that we reduced services. I know that when you and I spoke, my question is how much was this going to cost? And the fact of the matter is, the reality of the matter is, the school board and the school district is expending additional resources to procure these services for our athletes. So not only did we not cut them, we're
Mhm.
spending more money.
Yep, that's correct. And when Andrews has provided that at no cost, so the approximate cost is roughly $25,000 for EMS and PT Solutions. So that was an added cost, and given that cost, it was a kind of a no-brainer situation from Superintendent Chambers. The response was swift, which I knew it would be, but we always like to verify. But there was no hesitation in that decision.
And that's just for football season, 25,000.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So that's quite an investment for our district board to do. Necessary, but
Thank you, Mr. Gore.
Yep.
thank you.
And that brings us to 7.35, Science of Reading, Literacy, and Tutoring, SORT grant application, presented by Ryan Gore. That brings us to Section 8, Superintendent's Human Resources Recommendations. 8.1, Employees on Administrative Leave, presented by Lee Hale. 8.2, Deferred Retirement Option Program, presented by Lee Hale. 8.3, Department Staffing Restructure, presented by Lee Hale.
I wanted to say to Dr. Hale how much I appreciate you giving us these updates on hiring and that situation. It's very nice. You do a good job of getting right to the, nuts and bolts of this and this and this, and that's really a good thing for us to have. Thank you.
8.4, Proposed Fiscal Year 2023-2024 Salary Schedules for Administrative, Managerial, and Professional Technical Personnel, presented by Julie Perry. 8.5, Out-of-Field Report for the 2023-2024 school year, presented by Sharon Duran. 8.6, Employment Separations, presented by Lee Hale. 8.7, Personnel Recommendations, presented by Lee Hale. 8.8, Employee Transfers, presented by Lee Hale. 8.9, Reinstatement, Reimbursement of Sick Leave due to Line of Duty, Illness, Injury, or Medical Exam, presented by Lee Hale. And 8.10, Leave Without Pay, presented by Lee Hale. That brings us to Section 9, Discussion Agenda, and we had nothing moved there. Section 10, Construction Program Owners Representatives Business. 10.1, Report by the representative to the board.
And I would like to make some comments if I can, please.
Sure.
So, at our last board meeting, our last regular board meeting, I gave a brief go over what was going on. I feel like I could have done a better job, Madam Chair, in presenting that to the board. So at this time, I would like to just go over a couple of things, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
Just kind of add on to some task orders that we have here that I felt like, I missed on the previous meeting. Also moving forward, when we have our construction meeting, instead of rushing to get everything together for the Monday night meeting, I'm just going to start the following workshop and having a better rundown of everything that will go on that we've talked about. So I do want to just go over a couple of items. And Dr. Smith, Mr. Meyer, thank you for being here today. And I know we've had a lot going on, and just wanted to go over a few items. Task order number 30, which is time and materials construction of new electrical services at Lewis School and Crestview High School and upgrades at Niceville High School. I can tell you I was at Crestview High School the other night for their football game, and the lighting, everything is looking good there. I know that was something we did over the summer to get done. Can't wait to see at Lewis when they get their lights going on there, and of course Niceville with the upgrades there. So really excited about those. The work at Niceville and Crestview is complete, with the exception of a few poles that were still needed to be removed, but I think those have already been removed now. Task order number 33, which is the press box concession restrooms at various schools. This was something that we have added on now that we're going to be redoing some bathrooms at Crestview High School, and I believe Choctaw High School is going to be getting some much needed new bathrooms out there on the stadium. The press box concessions are for Fort Walton Beach softball, Crestview softball, and Lewis School. And hopefully those projects are going to be getting underway pretty soon. And task order number 34, which is the sales tax projects at Meigs and Destin Middle School. For those of you that frequent Meigs, you know that we moved their offices all the way up to the front, redid it. It's beautiful, but we've also left the previous office space, and it's not that it's in shambles, it's just not being utilized the way it should. So this is going to help fix that and get that area up to standard. Also some other little projects at Meigs, and of course Destin Middle School, we're going to be doing some cafeteria work there, and so much needed improvements at those two schools. Task order number 35 is of course the new Crestview K-8 and Destin Elementary 4th and 5th grade center. The planning is ongoing, and draft designs are being presented for feedback, so hopefully soon we'll be getting to see some of those plans on what the superintendent's going to recommend for at least the K-8 school. And then of course, you know, it's been really hot, so task order number 37 is talking about sales tax HVAC projects. And you know, it's interesting that we've had one of the hottest summers that I can remember in my lifetime, and our air conditioning units have really been taken to the test. We have had issues, but what's exciting about this particular task order is that we're now going to identify HVAC systems that are still working, but we know they're going to need to be replaced. So when we have something that goes out, and unfortunately it happens, Davidson Middle School is a great example of that. But we're hoping that we have a plan in place that we're going to identify these systems that we can replace them before they go out, so we don't run into issues where we're having to wait for a whole new unit to come in. And I will just tell you, the people that might be listening to this, that commercial air conditioning units are a lot different than residential. They're not all commercial air conditioners are built the same for obvious reasons, different scopes of buildings. Unlike residential. So with the supply chain issue the way it is, we are running into issues getting working units here in a timely manner, but they are on order. So as soon as they do come in, we're going to get those air conditioning units fixed. So please be patient with us. As soon as we identify an air conditioning issue, I know Mr. Horton, Dr. Smith, Mr. Meyer, Mr. Bolton, everybody's on top of it, and we're trying to get them back up and running as soon as possible. So, you know, it's just exciting to see all the great things, and we're up to task order number 37, which is going to change our next construction. We're actually going to have a few more on there. So, you know, so it's a really exciting time within the school district. We just ask that, you know, that some issues. They are going to be resolved. Just be patient with us. We'll get them up and running, and and we are looking at ways to improve on efficiency moving forward. And task order number 37, I think, is a great example of that. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you.
That brings us to 10.2, TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 38, Pre-GMP for District-Wide Fine and Performing Arts Facility Improvements, presented by Dr. Bill Smith.
And
Tim-
Madam Chair, the next two are the two I'm talking about.
Yes, that's right. 10.3 is TPM Program Number 6, Task Order Number 39, Pre-GMP for District-Wide Parking and Paving Projects. And those are, as you said, very important, and everyone's looking forward to those. That brings us to Section 11, Attorney's Business.
One item this morning, Madam Chair, I need to ask the board to schedule a special board meeting for an attorney-client session to discuss pending litigation. This is in the matter of litigation pending in the United States District Court in the Northern District of California. It is case number 322 CV0881. And we would ask that this meeting be set prior to your next workshop, which will be September the 11th at 8:30 a.m.
Thank you.
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That brings us to Section 12. 12.1 is out-of-state student trips, but 12.2 is our superintendent's correspondence.
Thank you, Madam Chair and School Board. I do have a few announcements that I'd like to make this morning, as well as a couple departments that I want to share some information. I want to start off with what we know is going on right now throughout the state of Florida, which is the tropical storm that will likely make its way into a hurricane today. Just would like the board to know that this weekend we're communicating as of the storm. Even Mr. Horton at a concert also communicating during that time. We did send out correspondence to our families on Saturday and Sunday, letting them know that we're paying attention to the storm. We're also in communication with Patrick Maddox here locally. I do want to say, even though right now it does not look like it's going to impact us here, as you know, it could shift at any time. So we'll continue to stay on this, communicate with our employees and our parents and the community as a whole.
Can
Just
I
wanna-
say something on that real quick? I was with a group of parents when that message went out, and they really did appreciate it, did bring some relief that how the district was being proactive and just letting them know that you are aware, you're working on it, and more information would be forthcoming. But it was funny because everybody started looking at their cell phones all of a sudden, and it did bring quite a bit of relief that the district was watching it. So thank you and your team on
Okay.
getting that out.
And I appreciate hearing that. And just for the board's knowledge, and you might already know, the way that we communicate with families, we have the all-call system. We now have a Thrill Share system where the all calls can still go out, but now we also have the ability to text straight to the phone where they get that. And just want to thank Mr. Mers. She does a great job running that program with Mr. Horton and his group, but she has done a fantastic job in making sure that we get that communication out.
Everybody was looking at cell phones all at the same time. And it was funny.
Also, I would just like to say, because it's August 28th and next month is September. And next month is American Founders Month, and there's several different, I'll call holidays, so to speak, that will occur during that time. And by that I mean we'll have Patriots Day, we will have a Constitution Day, and celebrate Freedom Week. And students aren't off on those days, but these are the types of activities that our students will be taking part in throughout the month of September. At the next board meeting, we'll have a more specific update for you as to what specific schools are doing or what they've already done. But Mr. Mers, Ms. Card, and their group will be working with our schools. We'll make sure that we highlight this exciting month as it comes upon us. Just wanted to share that with the board. And Dr. Hale, if you would come forward in just a very quick update, and I appreciate exactly what you said, Ms. Vanchek. We want to make sure that we get information to you so you're very aware of vacancies that are out there. But Dr. Hale and his group continue to be proactive, and our principals continue to be proactive when we can get the right person for the right fit and hire. And again, as a reminder, if we do not have the right person and the right fit, we're not trying to force a hire.
So, and I do appreciate the comments from earlier as well, and so I'm not going to go through the entire very detailed breakdown of the numbers that I've been communicating with you guys, but I will say that we continue to chip away. We continue to work hard. There is still no shortage of appointments going on over in HR these days. You may have noticed that since our last report, we've improved about 15 in the hiring vacancy area. Currently, as of this morning, in terms of school-based instructional vacancies, we're down to 44, which is really 22 if you consider the 22 long-term subs that we have in there. So we are still seeking instruction, different areas, but we continue to chip away. Every category is smaller than it was. In fact, we have fewer gen ed vacancies, 2 fewer than the last report, 3 fewer ESE school-based vacancies, which is great. When we can find ESE support, that's fantastic. And speaking of ESE, if we just kind of consider the support hiring that we've done, we've improved greatly in the new faces and new places category as well, close to 200 new faces and new places support-wise this hiring season. Specifically, I was speaking of the parapros the last time we spoke, and I believe it was high 30s in terms of the parapros that we're looking for. Now we're down well under 30, 25 to be exact, and only 20 in the ESE category, which is 5 fewer than the last report that I sent you through email. So we continue to chip away. The principals are getting creative. They're finding assistance within their communities and within their schools. And so we're continuing to improve, although we continue to seek vacancies and look for creative solutions. Is there any specific question that you might have? I will update you that, you know, as we continue to hire new instruction, still hovering right at the 45-46% of those new instructors are of the career changer variety. So our consulting teachers have their work cut out for them. But as I reported last time, over 95% of those that they worked with last year, we retained this year. So that's fantastic.
Super.
Doctor?
Any question?
Yes, I do. What's the substitute teaching? What's it looking like right now? How are we looking on that?
Okay, so I haven't checked fill rates lately, so I'll have that information.
I apologize. I'm
No,
throwing
that's
that
fine.
on you, but-
I should have that, and I
Yeah.
will start bringing that to each board meeting. I have not had any specific emergency calls from principals to this point, so I feel like no news might be good news, but I'll email you some specifics once I can run those reports.
Well, Dr. Hill, I have a question, Madam Chair, and I'm just so happy with the Ally Health program that you discussed about earlier. And I don't know if you've had an opportunity to take a look at some of the surrounding districts, if they offer such a free healthcare program for their employees and families. And so I'd be curious to know if surrounding districts have that, or if maybe we're unique in that, because I simply just don't know.
Well, and I can tell you, I can bring specific information, but in our vetting, we have a much more robust plan in place than any of our surrounding counties at this point. And certainly nobody does what we do, which is provide these benefits for free.
Well, I think that's important information that we might want to get out there, as we're all competing for the same
Recruitment.
few precious resources.
100%. And I think that, to your point, Dr. White, when we do recruit in that way, I think we'll find that even though Okaloosa continues to have 22 or 44 vacancies, depending on how you want to look at that, that we are at an advantage over many of our neighbors.
Excellent. Very good.
Yes, sir.
I did want to make a comment about substitute, okay? I just want to, verify that, of course, you and the superintendent are still committed to not, if you don't have to, except emergency situations, pulling paraprofessionals or those kinds of people to take on substituting if we don't have to, right?
Well, so the way that happens, it's going to be a school by school emphasis, and some parapros like that better than others. Certainly the contract allows those paraprofessionals the ability to not have to do that if they so desire. Many of them choose to because they get an additional rate of pay when they do that. But no, that's not our commitment. That's a last resort. And so what we would hope to do is fill it with a substitute. Actually, what we'd hope to do is fill it with a certified teacher, and then a substitute, and then the creativity in the classroom within the schools is whatever the principals can pull off, because they're they're, they're getting kind of used to that.
But
these
on a
days.
daily basis, sometimes it goes in waves, as you know. There's times when there's more absence and so you have a substitute and you can't get one, so you pull, that employee. But they have the option of, in other words, that employee's given the option to take that sub today or not, right?
So the support staff does have that option. Principals don't have the option of not filling those classes though, so they have to
Right.
get creative, and we have provisions within the support contract to provide that optional thing for parapros or others. But we also have language within the contract that allows teachers to kind of share those students when a teacher's out. So there's a lot of different devices that principals use. Certainly what we would like to do is keep the kids in place with a certified teacher, then a substitute, and then keep them together is a great option. And if we can't, then we split them up and have the teachers kind of divide and conquer.
Yeah. Well, in a perfect world, everybody's at work every day doing their job. But
Which
we know
is-
that
yes.
can't happen every day.
Which is
so.
why this allied health is so important, because we're hoping to attend to not only their physical well-being, but their mental well-being, because as I said earlier, we want our employees working,
Well,
healthy
yeah,
and working.
because you don't want them also just taking off just because to get an appointment. The only time you can get it is on 10 o'clock and you have to take the day off. So, yeah, that's good. Thank you.
And I just want to add two things there. So the 44 teacher vacancies, and Dr. Hale has alluded to, which is actually 22 with the long-term subs. Those long-term subs, from my understanding, are working towards getting their teacher credentials. So we wouldn't even have to do anything different. So they would just slide straight into the teaching position. So that's the hope there. And then I do want to say it's very critical on the 200 ed support positions. And we do also have ed support vacancies as well. But to the point of the 200 that we filled, we talk a lot of times about the teacher vacancies or the importance of the teacher, which is absolutely true. But we could not run this school district without our ed support folks. So what they've done is critical. This conversation to the question that you just asked, Ms. Ivanchek, is again, we couldn't get throughout the day without our ed support folks. So many of them step up and do that filling, even though we'd like to never pull them.
Sure.
But we could not do this without our ed support folks, so just very appreciative of that. I'm going to shift. Going to have Mr. Horton come up or stay there. Either way, it looks like he's committed to coming up. And just want to give our continued student enrollment update.
Good morning, board members.
Morning.
Just to update, I know at the last time we spoke, we were still going through what we call our D&E process for students who did not enroll in school, and we've had our schools work to make all those calls for students who haven't shown up. So we're now at a place where we've got a fairly consistent enrollment piece. Always Labor Day provides an opportunity for students to come in and register if they're coming from another state, maybe where school doesn't start till after Labor Day, so we get a little bit of bump there. As I mentioned before, we seem to be flat in enrollment. And we're actually a little bit below our projection for the current year that we're in. And I will say, plus or minus 1% means you've projected something with 99% accuracy, which is pretty good on something that's a moving target like enrollment. So I think that's where we'll be in terms of enrollment. We're a little bit under our projection right now. We're going to still wait to see. It's not until October that we do the actual student seat counts for funding. But I will say is when it looks as though you may not hit your projection exactly, you also have to have a plan in place for what to do, because the state funds you on the students who are enrolled in seats. And so it's important at this time that it kind of in alignment with the discussion about employee and hiring, we've not employed as many teachers this year as potentially we had projected to do. So we always, and Ms. Perry always keeps a category aside for instructional positions for class size, compliance, and those sorts of things. And so that pot of teaching units, if you will, is not something we've been able to or needed to dip into this fall based on current enrollment. So I think we've talked about being flat. I think it might be a little bit under the projected amount. And so that means at a particular school, enrollment wasn't what we potentially thought. Most likely at the elementaries, it's because kindergarten wasn't as high as it was anticipated or historically had been. So in those cases where we look to have fewer teachers, in the building to kind of keep class size on the same level that it's been in the past. It's
So-
hard for me to say, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
That's okay. So 1%, we're talking 300 kids?
Could be 300 students across 38 schools. And again, you'll see some places where the enrollment's up. It's not a fact that every school in the North End's enrollment has gone up this year.
Right.
Antioch would be an example. Their enrollment this year is actually down from where it was the previous year. And so you look at trends over time to do some projections and things, but it could be that the enrollment could be 1%.
Well, hopefully that shortfall will be made up, as you suggested, in the fact that we did not employ those additional teachers.
That is correct, and at this point, that looks to be the case, and we have unfilled positions, not unfilled, excuse me, not even allocated out to the schools. So that funding is sitting off to the side, not to be used for anything else other than if the event would come in under projection, the state will only pay you for the kids here, it goes right back.
That's right.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to take the board back to the March time frame. So Mr. Horton already, when he's going out with allocations, knowing what our FTE projections are, but when he goes out with allocations to the schools, already took a conservative approach back in the March time frame. Then as we go through the summer, Mr. Horton monitors every school, the enrollment, the teaching staff, and that's the piece that he looks at. And in some cases, we've removed a teacher allocation or sections based on enrollment. And as you all know, that schools should be staffed based on enrollment. So he's done a great job in communicating with Dr. Hale and Ms. Perry. And I do want to say, many of us can remember projecting for student enrollment at schools 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Things are a little different now across the state of Florida, where now you're looking at family empowerment scholarships, you're looking at homeschool, you're looking at online, and other providers. So I think it's important that we continue to monitor those other options for families, and families should have options. But again, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're doing a good job in terms of the staffing for our schools. And I just appreciate the attention that's paid to that.
So we have more fluid zones now and more opportunities, making it more
Yes,
difficult
ma'am.
to project.
Controlled open enrollments opened it up for folks, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else?
One other thing.
Okay.
So we do have, so like behind you or in front of you, we talk about this being an A+ school district, and the plus being academics, arts, and athletics. And one thing that folks may not know is when you start looking at the academic side of things in terms of academic excellence, when does that process start? Well, the answer is it really doesn't ever stop. It's a continuous cycle. In our curriculum instruction department, Ms. Berry, if you come forward, our curriculum instruction department does a great job starting in the February-ish time frame, where they already start looking at last year's school performance plan and then what we might do this year, getting input from principals, teachers, instructional coaches. What are our new focus areas going to be? Working with schools. Then there's summer, the different types of meetings that happen in terms of looking at data, what type of adjustments do schools need to make, and then looking at the professional learning model that needs to be done not only for our veteran teachers, but new teachers that are coming into this profession. So I wanted to take just a little bit of time, because we don't necessarily talk about the nuts and bolts of the academics, which, other than making sure that our students and employees are safe, that's the most important thing. So, Ms. Berry, if you've kind of share just a little bit of information.
So on your screens, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the school performance plan process, as well as how it ties into the professional learning that will occur throughout the school year. So on your screens, you'll see the life cycle of an SPP. And as Mr. Chambers just alluded to, it is something that never ends. It is a living, breathing document, not only for schools, but also in our curriculum office. Right now, we're finishing up phase 1 of the planning process. We're currently reviewing those SPPs, those school performance plans that those teams at each school has spent the summer creating, looking at their data in order to make the best instructional decisions for their school. We're calling each school in, we're providing feedback, and then tweaks are being made based on those conversations. Then we're transitioning into phase 2 at the school level. Those schools are taking the feedback, already planning those Tuesday tips, those faculty meetings that are based on targeting school data in order to increase student achievement. And then also, we are scheduling school visits to see that implementation in action. So that will be during that phase 2 process. And just as Mr. Chambers said, our professional learning is our focus. So over the summer, and we had some pretty staggering numbers this year, we had about 105 professional learning sessions that occurred over the summer, which is, that's a rather large number that we're proud of. That's to include all content areas from ELA to social studies to science in all grade levels, also to include ESE and other departments. We had about 923 participants. So once again, that's a rather large number that we haven't seen in many years. So what that tells us is that teachers are eager to learn the new standards, the new teaching procedures.
And that's over 50%, approximately over 50% of our teaching staff taking part in professional learning, during the summer.
On their own time, which is pretty fantastic. Other districts don't. They would be hungry for those numbers. And this year, the professional learning model has changed slightly, and that's based on school data. Especially at the elementary level, we got feedback that they need their coaches in the schools at critical times throughout the year in order to help those new teachers implement, get their classrooms started, implement the instructional expectations for the year, and also support after each professional learning session so they can begin getting in the classrooms and implementing as well. So what you'll see is in August, we had our professional learning day. Secondary math and science is starting to do their professional learning in August and September. Elementary will begin in October. November and December, that allows for the coaches then to be in the classrooms working with those teachers. January, we'll once again have our professional learning. February, but then after that, coaches are in the classrooms helping with implementation. So that is a quick overview.
And that's a big shift in terms of, we've always had our professional learning starting in the September timeframe, early September, and then just going forward. But through feedback, like Ms. Berry said, especially with the number of new teachers, making sure our coaches are in the schools the first 2 months before we actually start our professional learning. So I just appreciate that adjustment based on feedback that was given. And so this is a snippet or a quick overview of all that happens, in essence, from February all through where we are today. And it's a continuous model, but just appreciate the work that especially happens at the school level, but also the work that happens at the district level as well. So I appreciate it.
Any
Could
questions?
could we get that sent to us, please?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
I'd like to, because I can't see every little thing from here.
Oh,
so
okay.
but also it is, with several of us having been classroom teachers, I know when I was in an English department, we have, say, 22 teachers. There may be 2 or 3 new ones. I think now it's probably flipped the other way. And so
Definitely.
back then, when you have 2 or 3 new teachers, you can get under wing and get them going. But now when you have so many, between attrition, people retiring, and just in general where we are, I think this is a great response to, changing with the times and reacting to what our teachers need to be successful.
Definitely.
And then looking at how we moved up to 5th in the state, we're obviously reacting in an appropriate way and a successful way. And I'm glad to see this, and thank you for doing that.
Of course. Okay, thank you.
That is it, Madam Chair.
That's it. Okay. Thank you so much for those updates. So that brings us to section 13, board members' announcements and/or requests for information. And I think I'll start with Ms. Evanchik today.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. I have a couple of things to mention today. Board, I just want to let you know that you appointed me to attend the Value Adjustment Board for Okaloosa County, And I did that in the last 2 weeks, just letting you know. There's not a big report to tell. It's a world that I'm not that familiar with, although I've been on this board. It's very interesting to hear about property values. It does relate to us because of the trim notice and all that, but it's a wonderful board of very intelligent and professional individuals that kind of keep me updated, but I did attend that. I'd also like to tell you that I've just joined, and glad to do it, the Okaloosa County Teachers Federal Credit Union Board. And I know that's not one of the ones that we assign, but, and that, of course, the credit union is not under the school district, but so many of our employees utilize that, facility that just wanted to let you know I'm on that board. And we have a few former administrators from our district who have been on that board a while, along with Mr. Gore. So he'll keep me straight and everything, but there's that. Okay, and then on the Okaloosa County Public Schools Foundation Board, we met and we're back with getting teacher grants going. And I just think this is wonderful. I think I've mentioned before that I received one of these teacher grants back when I was in the classroom, and I think it's one of the best things that we do, and that's happening now, letting the teachers, this is for something that the teacher wants to do, that it kind of falls in between. There is no specific funding model, and these grants go up to $2,500 and keeps our teachers from having to reach into their own pockets to do these things. So that's coming up. And put October 14th on your calendar for our Burgers and Bingo, which is always a fun night, because that helps us raise money for that event, for being able to do those grants. Also want to point out a student that we've recognized in front of this board, Whitney Walker, who just graduated from Baker, and she, of course, was the first recipient of the Superintendent Scholarship, Bright Future Scholarship. But also to let you know that in addition to that, the other night, I basically got introduced as Whitney Walker's school board member, and I was glad to have that title because she received the Okaloosa County Republican Club's Jerry Melvin Leadership Scholarship. And she had previously won the Niceville Republican Women's Scholarship, and so she was able to attend with her mother. And she had already started classes at Northwest Florida State College in education. You know, she wants to be a second grade teacher. I wish we could do like long-term contracts and go ahead and get her to sign and kind of like that and get her knowing that when she comes out, we got her. Because she's wonderful, and we could do that, but very proud of Whitney, and we've met her, and she's just a stellar student. One more thing I want to do is, you know, we talk about our support employees, which we couldn't open the doors every day without them, and we try and recognize them as much as possible, but sometimes, every once in a while, there's a couple that are in the shadows that you don't hear much about, and I wanted to talk about a couple of guys, Perry Rich and Sean DeWitt. These fellas run our in-house print shop, and if the public doesn't know, our school district does all of our in-house printing. And we have a pretty good operation down there at the Lowry Place, and we've come a long way. Because I remember back as a teacher, when I was teaching at Choctaw, to run something with green ink on it, they had to schedule a day, because those machines ran certain colored ink. That sounds so archaic, but that was a green day. But anyway, these guys particularly work hard in the summer because they're getting everything ready for the start of school. And I went down there a couple of times during the summer for some things, and they had stuff just piled up. I don't know what that was, but I think we're okay.
Let's hope it's rain.
Anyway, they do and it's all like everything is hurry up and get it done. And they were cool, calm, collected. They're always very pleasant. They're very professional. They do an excellent job at what they do. I mean, they're doing teacher and handbooks. They're doing flip charts. All these things, the two fellas do that. So just want to do a little shout out to Mr. Rich and Mr. DeWitt, who do a wonderful job down there at the print shop. And again, they do it with a smile and are always very pleasant to work with. So thank you.
Ms. Gardner. Thank you, Ms.
And I
Evangelist.
appreciate you mentioning the print shop because we are always calling at the last minute, seems like needing something, and they are always cool,
Always
collected.
do it.
Mr. Rich's Perry's been there. I only know Ms. Perry has been there for a very long time.
Yeah,
And we do
yes.
appreciate their way they quickly take care of us. I'd like to mention that on this coming Wednesday, August the 30th, that the nutrition group in the Okaloosa County School District Food Service are inviting all the kindergartners throughout the district to eat free. And this is being done so that our little kindergartners can get used to the cafeteria, going through the line, meeting the cafeteria workers, the workers meeting them. So I'd like to encourage our parents, free day where you don't have, first of all, the meal's free, you don't have to pack a lunch for your child, but encourage you to let your child come through the lunch line on Wednesday, August the 30th. And if you go to your district, your school's website, or even to the district and look at the lunch menu, you'll see exactly what they'll be serving on Wednesday. And I believe what I saw was chicken nuggets,
I was gonna say,
barbecue,
you gotta have some chicken
and
nuggets.
an array of fruit, fresh fruit and vegetables. It really did look very inviting. So encourage all of our kindergarten students to come through our lunch line. Our nutrition group and our school district employees do an excellent job in there. From kindergarten to seniors, I was kind of looking around to different websites, and our seniors, senior parents, they're already scheduling and makeups for the senior pictures and ordering things for your senior for graduation. And even though we just started school, it will be here before we know it, and things have to be ordered, so keep an eye on that. And last, I'd like to thank Amber and Mary, and I know Vince probably had something to do with it, but on the agenda here earlier, you saw that Elliott Point received the Clear Touch pads, and that quote came in later on Thursday, and they quickly worked on that to get that approved. It was later getting on your agenda, so thank you for letting that be accepted. But Mr. Nuss is very excited about his new wing, and they want these Clear Touch panels in there, and I think he said 2nd, 3rd grade. Please don't hold me to that. But they're so excited about these new classrooms and how quickly those are being put together. But thank you, Bree, and the others that had something to do with that, to get that. So we didn't have to wait another couple of weeks, which would make it about a month before we could get these panels in. So thank you
And Ms.
for
Gardner,
that.
through your support, now grades 2 through 5 will all have Clear
Yes,
Touches?
yes.
And then, of course, he's still working on K1, but
My part was easy.
but that's
They
a-
were the
that's a
ones
big deal.
that- It is a big deal, and they're so excited over there. So I do appreciate everybody working together and getting that on this agenda. And I did already mention being proactive about the weather. We are hearing this thunder, and let's just hope for rain. We will be thinking of our friends on the east side of us. I mean, they just had last year, really devastating hurricane come through, so let's just hope that this isn't going to be that traumatic for them, because some of these students have not even started school yet. So we'll be thinking of them. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. Dr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I thought maybe you folks might appreciate hearing a little personal anecdote. This past week, Connie and I had the pleasure of keeping our 6-year-old and 3-year-old grandsons, which meant that Mom and Pop, or Lolly and Pop, got to be Mom and Dad at home as they brought home their work for us to review. And it's been a while since I've been in elementary school, but you hear a lot about the accelerated curriculum. And as I was going through that folder and looking at some of the work, I was more than impressed. Well, first of all, I was told the night before that we had to prepare for a math test. So, of course, I dusted off my old teaching cap, and some of you might know that I taught math in high school a long time ago, and so we worked on the math stuff, get ready for the test. But in the course of all that and going through the folder, I was surprised and impressed to know that first graders are learning about not just Thanksgiving, but the Thanksgiving proclamation issued by Abraham Lincoln. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was in first grade, I don't think I could even say proclamation. And so I did the best I could to try to explain all that to a 6-year-old. But he knew that Mr. Lincoln wore a tall hat.
There you
So,
go. That's important.
I just thought y'all might appreciate knowing that our kids are learning a lot of stuff at a very, very young age, and it's pretty awesome.
I'd be eager to hear a report on how your grandson did
On that map.
on that map.
I was
Maybe
thinking the same
I can
thing.
tell you tonight, but we'll see.
I'm sure it went fine. Thank you, Dr. White. Mr. Bryant?
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Just real quick to follow up with the Okaloosa Public Schools Foundation, I just want to say thank you to Christy Evans and Miranda Cook for setting up the training for the Take Stock Mentors. It's a great program. I can tell you that in Crestview area, we are short 2 male mentors. So if anybody is interested in being a mentor to students, it's a great program. I know you've heard us all talk about it. I have a new student this year. The last 4 years were exciting for me because I had a celebrity in under my wing, and to see him go off to college now is a great experience. My first one that I did about 2005, he sent me a message not too long ago just letting me know that he's doing good in his life, and he's now in his 30s. So it's a great program, but men, this is an opportunity for to step up and be an impact on these students who need mentors to help them get a scholarship after it's all said and done with, to go to college or even go to trade school and all. So it's a great program. So if you're interested, just call Christy Evans and Miranda Cook or Debbie Tate. Just give anybody a call up there. We'll get you placed with those students. And then finally, I look out here and I see Mr. Horton, and I just want to say thank you for everything that you do. School board members, we have the luxury of reaching out to the superintendent, and he gives us the luxury of reaching out to staff when we need to, and that doesn't always happen throughout school boards and superintendents and all that throughout the state, throughout the country. And I'm fortunate that we have that open line of communication. But to see Mr. Horton come back from his accident that he had a month and a half ago, to see him out there doing what he's doing is a true testament to dedication to the school district. But I know he probably gets tired of me calling him every other day with, hey, I need your calming voice here, but Mr. Horton, I just want you to know that we appreciate just seeing you out here, back at work and doing the things that you're good at, and being the support that we need out there. Is just a testament of your dedication to the school district. And most people haven't gone through what you have gone through, wouldn't have been back to work as quick, I don't think, just because it was a pretty bad accident, I know, but we are appreciative of all that you do. Yeah. And that is it, Madam Chair.
I did feel sorry for him until he told me where he's going to a concert. And then I went, okay, he's all right. He's okay. And the fact that I didn't get to go. So.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. And I'll just conclude by saying that, we talk often about how grateful we are for the SROs in our school district. And I was thinking you were going to bring this up, but I'll bring it up since you didn't. I know that you, too, have given him accolades, but all of our SROs are just so tremendously important on our campuses, and we appreciate all that they do, certainly when they rotate in and serve us here.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to point out that I understand that their MO is almost intuitive for them. They don't just stop when they take the jacket off and the star off. But Deputy Rojas at Laurel Hill was recently recognized for his swift actions that helped him prevent a potentially deadly situation, which happened really in January, but recently was acknowledged. He was attending a high school basketball game when he spotted the silhouette of a weapon on the hip of an 18-year-old at the concession stand. The young man tried to adjust his clothing and turned away from him and tried to get away, but Deputy Rojas intercepted him before he got into the gym, where he could have done severe damage, and escorted him safely away. And that's just one example. I mean, our guys do this all the time, and we don't even know about it. But I just wanted to highlight that one that was brought to mind recently. So thank you and all of you for what you do every day. And then I wanted to point out that we have such fantastic donors in our communities that almost every time we have an agenda, we have a donation to a school or to a particular office that members in our community, whether it's a business or an individual, give to us. And I just wanted to thank them collectively, as we do privately, individually, for always stepping up and helping our schools and our students. And I just wanted to say a general kudo for all of our staff at all of our schools, because we've had such a great, smooth beginning of school. Haven't had any rumbles of anything other than what happens traditionally. You know, things are going to break, but we also have people that are Johnny on the spot to get those things covered and to get the necessary things done. Everyone got fed, as we said, everyone got transported home appropriately, and there were not any hiccups to a smooth opening of school. So kudos to everyone on that. And that's all I have. So that would bring us down tonight to section 14, public comment, the yellow card version. Of course, we don't know of those yet. But we do have quite a lengthy spell at 6:15 this evening. We'll have to pause and have public hearings. 15.1 will be a public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 03-01, instructional materials, presented by Tasha Bates. 15.2 will be a public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 03-03, operational policies for Okaloosa District School Media Centers, presented by Ms. Bates. 15.3, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 0305, procedure for handling criticism of library books or educational material, presented by Ms. Bates. 15.4, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 04-19, field trips, presented by Ms. Bates. 15.5, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 04-25, administering medicines to students, presented by Terry Schroeder. 15.6, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 06-37, electronic resources technology acceptable use policy for employees, presented by Eric Mitchell. 15.7, public hearing for adoption of new School Board Policy 06-41, restroom and changing facility access, presented by Lee Hale. 15.8, public hearing for adoption of revised School Board Policy 11-18, public conduct on school property, presented by Dr. Hale.
Dr. Kelly?
Yes.
May I ask a question
Yes,
of
sir.
the attorney? The first 8 items that we're going to be voting on tonight, this is in lieu of Florida's law changing, am I correct?
This is our typical bring policies in annually after the legislative session, and these, for the most part, all include various changes that were brought about by legislative change.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And 15.9, public hearing for adoption of a new job description for district coordinator, presented by Dr. Hale. That brings us to, before we do our favorite part, anyone on the district staff have anything to add? Any other announcements or items to bring up? Anything else? Patrick? Anybody from the union side? Anything else? So with that being said, we are adjourned. Thank you.